Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Budget session begins. This is the last parliamentary session ahead of the general election. Suspension of opposition MPs revoked. The Prime Minister says he hopes MPs who are in the habit of ripping apart democratic values will introspect. The Finance Minister will present the interim budget tomorrow. President Murmu addresses a joint sitting of Parliament, says the grand edifice of a developed India will stand on 4 strong pillars of youth power, women power, farmers and the poor. Also calls the Ram Temple consecration a matter of aspiration and faith for crores of countrymen. Adds the resolution has been accomplished in a harmonious manner. Mobile component sector gets a recharge. The government cuts import duty on mobile components from 15% to 10%. The components include battery covers, main camera lens, among others. CNBC-TV18 learns import duty rationalization of over 40 products on the cards. Stock markets perk up on the eve of the interim budget. The sensex and the nifty gain 1%. Bank stocks lead the charge. Mid-cap index hits a record high. Maruti Suzuki largely meets estimates in Q3. Profits up 33%, beating estimates. Revenue growth of 15%, marginally below estimates. Margins expand thanks to improved realization and capacity utilization. Wipro says it's aligning its business and talent to the changing market environment after reports claim hundreds of mid-level employees will be laid off. Wipro's headcount has been declining for 5 straight quarters. Headcount at TCS and Infosys has also been declining for the last 6 months. Microsoft reports quarterly profits of $22 billion thanks to demand for cloud services fueled by optimism around artificial intelligence. Google's advertising revenue in Q4 crosses $86 billion but falls short of Wall Street's lofty expectations. Both stocks see profit booking. Israel's Prime Minister vows to continue to attack Gaza despite mounting pressure from families of hostages held by Hamas. Reports claim Hamas is evaluating a ceasefire proposal. The World Health Organization warns of a worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where 2 people died due to suffocation while trying to access food. Former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan and his wife are sentenced to 14 years in jail over a case related to illegal sale of state gifts. This comes a day after Khan was sentenced to 10 years of imprisonment in a separate case. Khan's party says they will challenge the verdict. Pakistan goes to polls in a week's time. A U.S. court strikes down Elon Musk's $56 billion compensation package at Tesla, calling it an unfathomable sum. The judge also pulls up the company's board, saying the process to approve the compensation was, and I quote, deeply flawed.
मेरी सरकार मानती है कि विकसित भारत की भव्य इमारत 4 मजबूत स्तंभों पर खड़ी होगी। ये स्तंभ है युवा शक्ति, नारी शक्ति, किसान और गरीब।
सभी माननीय सांसदों से आग्रह करूंगा कि आप इस अवसर को जाने मत दीजिए। देश हित में उत्तम से उत्तम अपने विचारों का लाभ सदन को दें और देश को भी उत्साह और उमंग से भर दें। पूर्ण बजट नई सरकार बनने के बाद आपके समक्ष लेकर के आएंगे।
ये अभिभाषण जो उन्होंने दिया वो एक प्रोपेगेंडा और एडवर्टाइजमेंट मोदी जी का उसमें दिखने लगा और पूरा पॉलिटिकल था।
Growth must always be factored in with inflation. Only inflation, if you minus inflation, you must see what the real growth is. This is not a budget, this is only a vote on account to allow the government to function until the new parliament, until the new government is formed after the 18th Lok Sabha.
Well, the budget session of Parliament is kicked off with the joint sitting of both houses today. The interim budget will be presented tomorrow. Ahead of the session, Prime Minister Modi addressed the media, terming the session a festival of women power. The Prime Minister also attacked the opposition for disrupting proceedings during the winter session when 146 opposition MPs were suspended. The suspension imposed on all MPs now revoked ahead of this budget session. President Murmu addressed the first day of the budget session and said that India has emerged as the fastest growing economy and touted the achievements of the government. Emphasizing on women's empowerment, the President said the government is working on all fronts to improve living conditions and employment. Congress President Kharge termed the President's speech a propaganda and advertisement for the Modi government. This will be the last Parliament session before the general elections. Out of the 960 million people eligible to vote, 470 million are women voters as per data from the Election Commission.
मेरी सरकार ने महिलाओं की आर्थिक भागीदारी बढ़ाने के लिए निरंतर प्रयास किए हैं। आज लगभग 10 करोड़ महिलाएं स्वयं सहायता समूह से जुड़ चुके हैं। इन समूहों को 8 लाख करोड़ रुपया बैंक लोन और 40,000 करोड़ रुपया की आर्थिक सहायता दी गई है। मेरी सरकार 2 करोड़ महिलाओं को लाखपति दीदी बनाने का अभियान चला रही है।
Well, clearly, Nari Shakti is the clear focus of the government in this budget. A few days before the budget, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highway has emphasized pay parity and pushed for ensuring basic amenities like maternity and miscarriage leaves for women working in highway construction. Furthermore, the EPFO has made a noteworthy amendment to its rules allowing women government employees to have children as nominees instead of just their spouses. This shift reflects a progressive approach towards recognizing diverse family structures. Now also, let's take a look at what else has been done so far. It is worth noting that the government successfully passed the Women's Reservation Bill in the Parliament during the monsoon session. A look at major schemes by the government in the last 10 years shows remarkable success towards women empowerment. Now, a significant 56% of the 51 crore Jan Dhan accounts accumulating 2.1 lakh crore belong to women. The success of Mudra Yojana is evident with 68% of the 44.5 crore loans amounting 26.1 lakh crore have been granted to women entrepreneurs. Similarly, the Stand Up India initiative has sanctioned 84% of its 2.1 lakh loans to women. The government is also focusing on women participation in the governance. The recently released economic review noted a remarkable growth with women holding 46% of the elected Panchayat representative seats. Looking ahead, the government aims to create 2 lakh Lakpati Didis by skilling self-help group members in various fields including plumbing, LED bulb making and drone operations. Furthermore, over 53% of beneficiaries in the Prime Minister's Rural Digital Literacy campaign as of July 2023 are women, emphasizing the ongoing commitment to advancing female empowerment in various sectors.
Shivani, many thanks. Well, women, that could be one of the big focus areas for the interim budget. Now, the government has cut import duties on mobile components to 10% from 15%. This comes a day ahead of the interim budget. The components include battery covers, main camera lens, among others. The industry has welcomed the decision, saying that the move will boost export-led growth for the sector. Ashmit standing by with the details. Ashmit, this has of course been a demand that the industry has put on the table for a while now, and in fact the minister had said that this would be the next logical step, and it's now been done.
Indeed, in fact, just in the conversations in Davos, he had pointed out that this is the next step forward, that we've managed to achieve import substitution as far as the mobile industry is concerned. But for the next leg of growth, which is export-led growth, which is assimilation with the global value chains, duty cuts is important. This, in fact, was a long-standing demand of the industry. The industry has been saying all along that we've achieved the first leg of growth. But if we are to achieve competitiveness globally, then we need to be able to compete with countries like Vietnam and China, which have much lower duty rates. And that was the core concern that was being expressed time and time again. In fact, very recently, the industry body had come out with a report as well, which had highlighted some of these concerns. And the government finally taking cognizance of that a day ahead of the budget a formal notification coming out, and under this notification, the applicable BCD, or the basic customs duty on several key components, the likes of battery covers, the likes of phone covers, the main camera lens, the mechanics of it, all of them, the duty has been cut from 15% to 10%. Now, this may not seem as much, but the industry has welcomed this with open arms. The industry said that this will solve a whole host of interpretational issues which were being faced at the time of import of these key components. This will make India more competitive. This will make products in India more competitive. This will help in assimilation of the local industry here with the global value chains. Essentially, to cut it short, the industry says we'll be able to export more. So a key step forward here as far as the mobile industry is concerned. The industry welcoming this move from the government day ahead of the budget with open arms.
Ashmit, many thanks. And remember, Electronics and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav had spoken to me on the sidelines of the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Vaishnav had backed the mobile industry's demands, calling a tariff cut on imported components the next logical step. Take a look.
It's good logical next step, because what has happened is we have to now move from import substitution to export-led growth. That is the moment we need to, that is the transition we need to make. And that requires a totally different mindset, that requires totally different structure.
So there is a case to be made for a cut in tariffs, and you are in favor of that?
Absolutely, especially for the component ecosystem.
And that cut has now come through. The stock markets rallied on the eve of the interim budget. The sensex and the nifty gaining 1% after a broad-based rally. All the nifty bank constituents ended in the green. The mid-cap index, by the way, hit a record high in intraday trade, outperforming the blue chips. That's the sensex up 600 points. The nifty up by about 1%. The nifty bank higher by 600 points. And the nifty mid-cap, new record there, 776 points higher. Prashant standing by with more on the market rally. Prashant, going in strong ahead of the budget.
You know, it's kind of confusing, Shireen, right? Because it's strong and weak, because that's the kind of week we've had so far, and it's just 3 days in. So Monday, we got that 400-point rally. Tuesday, we got a 200-point sell-off. And today, we got a 200-point rally once again. So directionally, not very much in terms of clarity. But yes, I mean, you know, the last sort of touch on the markets as we head into the budget tomorrow is on the way up. Now, the market picked up, and we had, as I said, a full 200-point kind of a move on the index. Things picked up in the last 30 minutes specifically. Nifty Bank doing quite well. And within the Nifty Bank, PSU banks are the ones which did the most. I mean, the Nifty PSU Bank index was up almost 2.5%. And it's interesting to note that, you know, if you assess earnings so far, it's PSU banks which most likely will see earnings upgrades. Private banks at the margin have disappointed rather than surprised on the upside. Mid caps and small caps, strong day once again, 1 and 2.5% gains on the mid and the small cap indices respectively. Now, let me just run you through stocks. On the Nifty large caps, Dr. Reddy is doing very well today. Aisha doing very well. Sun Pharma was higher. Divi's Laboratories looking up. Tata Motors continuing its outperformance. It's the best performing Nifty stock of the last 1 year. By the way, the number 2 and the number 3 stocks are also auto companies, auto stocks. Cipla is the other one which participated in the upside as well. Pressure coming through on L&T. There was some earnings downgrades post the numbers yesterday, and there was Titan which saw a little bit of a pullback as well. Market breadth was comfortably in the positive, 2:1 in favor of advances. But I must say the volume-led list of gainers is so diverse and so long that I'll just mention a few to give you an indication. PB Fintech, we had the management with us after numbers came through. Big gains. Voltas hasn't participated in the rally in the last 2 years. I mean, we saw actually lots of those out-of-favor stocks coming back into the mix. Voltas was one, 7.5 higher. HCC was up. Something like Azad Engineering, small name, rarely mentioned, but was one of the big volume-led gains today. UCO Bank is one of the least, it's not performed as well as other public sector banks, so rotation here. KPIT Tech, it sold off. Earnings management was with us today, and stock recovering sharply. Godrej Phillips, Max Healthcare, IFCI, Jyoti CNC, Transport Corporation, Angel One, names like Ratnamani Metals, Shilpa Medicare, HBL Power, stocks which have not done well for years. Balaji Amines was one such name which participated, and something like a Red Tape doing well. On the downside, just pullbacks. Red Tape, Tata Investment Corporation, which is up some 50% this year already. Kalyan Jewellers and Jyoti Laboratories were a few that I'd like to highlight. But all in all, an extremely strong session. But the Nifty still very much in about a 350 odd point range. FOMC decision tonight, and of course the budget tomorrow will be the big drivers. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Prashant. Yes, we are going to be tracking the market action and the budget action right here on CNBC TV18. On to the earnings space, and there's plenty to contend with. Maruti's Q3 numbers largely in line with streets' expectations. The automaker's net profit up 33% to over 3,000 crore rupees. Revenue jumped 15% on an annual basis. Sonia standing by with the Maruti report card. Sonia.
Well, thanks a lot for that. You know, Maruti's numbers are largely in line with what the street was estimating. So there's no positive or negative surprise this time in the numbers. The reason why the stock is up is because it has seen a large degree of underperformance compared to the auto space in the year gone by. The margins are up 190 basis points year on year, coming in at 11.7%, while the profits have beaten street estimates, up almost about 33%. On the top line as well, largely in line with estimates, a growth of around 15%. Now remember, this time around, Maruti's volume growth was in single digits. That's because despite the 60% growth in the UV segment, there was a degrowth of 40% in the small car segment and in the entry-level segment. And that's the reason why Maruti has not been able to grow 10% plus. The other issue that Maruti is facing is that now the tailwinds for margins are behind them. This quarter, in fact, in Q4, raw material prices have gone up and the company has tried to pass it on to consumers as well. So will they be able to hold on to this 11.7% margin? That is something that the street is keenly watching out for.
All right, Sonia, many thanks. That's Maruti. On to earnings from the pharma space. It's a beat across the board for Sun Pharma in Q3. Net profit up 16%. Margins improved by over 2% year on year. Quarterly revenues also grew on the back of strong sales growth in the US. The company has also declared a dividend of 9 rupees a share. FMCG major Dabur's Q3 numbers line with estimates. On an annual basis, the company's net profit rose 8%, revenue up 7%, margins expanded by 50 basis points. Dabur's board has also approved a capex of 135 crore rupees, and this amount will be used to set up a new plant in South India. Up for a break, but up next, Wipro says it's aligning its business and talent to the changing market environment. This after reports claim hundreds of mid-level employees will be laid off. A deep dive into tech layoffs coming up. Well, here's a CNBC TV18 exclusive. Religare Enterprises' largest shareholder, the Berman family, is likely to have increased its stake in the group through a large block deal today. This as per sources who say that the Bermans were the buyers in a block deal that saw 4.4% equity change hands. Remember, if the Bermans have increased their stake, this will likely trigger the mandatory open offer in Religare Enterprises. Wipro says it's aligning its business and talent to the changing market environment after reports claim that hundreds of mid-level employees will be laid off. Wipro's headcount fell for the fifth time in a row in the third quarter when the headcount declined by over 4,000. In fact, the headcount has been declining across IT companies for the last 6 months. Rima is standing by with a deep dive on the layoffs and rationalization that we are seeing across the tech space. Rima.
So let me start with the numbers to put into context what's been happening and why this news assumes significance. Wipro's headcount has been declining for 5 straight quarters. Cumulatively, the net headcount is down more than 20,000. For Infosys, the headcount has declined for 4 consecutive quarters, and for TCS too. Over the last 2 quarters, we've seen the headcount fall by about 5,000 to 6,000 every quarter. So this moderation in headcount or layoffs in a way has been happening. It's been ongoing for a while and it looks like it might just continue. Now the question you probably will ask is why is this happening? One, the demand has slowed down much more than what the companies had earlier anticipated. There are project ramp downs, discretionary spending has not taken place. Many companies in fact have lowered their full year revenue growth forecast because of this slowdown in demand. Secondly, the companies had overhired in the heydays of the digital transformation post-COVID, and now they're sitting on a pretty large headcount. The utilization is on the lower side. And finally, and this is also a big reason, attrition has fallen materially. Attrition, which used to be above 20% last year, is now down to low double digits, and therefore, if your attrition level is lower, the need to backfill also comes down. So now let me move on to tell you what the companies have been saying in this backdrop whenever we ask them about this moderation in headcount. So today, Wipro, we reached out to the company, when the reports about the layoffs came, and this is what they had to say to CNBC. Aligning our business and talent to the changing market environment is a critical part of our strategy as we look to build a resilient, agile and high-performing organization. Here the key word is aligning the business, i.e. demand requirement versus the talent. TCS in the month of January said that they are continuing to recalibrate their lateral hiring. While Infosys, if you remember, this year has not gone to the campus altogether. This had come out a couple of months back, and even in January, they had said that as of now, we're not seeing any immediate campus requirement. So this actually spells very bad news for the fresh engineers or the graduates. Now, the bad news is that this is not an India-specific problem. It's been happening globally. So over the last couple of days, we've heard PayPal firing about 2,500 employees because they want to right-size the company. This is about 9% of their headcount. Reuters has reported that Salesforce is laying off about 700 employees, 1% of the global workforce. Microsoft has removed about 1,900 positions in the gaming division. eBay has slashed its workforce by nearly 9% as expenses are growing faster than business. And SAP has announced a company-wide restructuring program this year, which will approximately affect 8,000 positions. To wrap it off, we looked at the data from a company called Layoffs.fii. Now, last year, 2023, was the biggest year in terms of layoffs. More than 2.5 lakh people were shown the pink slip. And this year, in the month of January, we've already seen close to about 29,000 layoffs taking place globally by tech companies.
Well, it is tough news there as far as people looking for employment in the tech space are concerned and those already employed as well. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. We leave you with visuals of the top team in the Finance Ministry on the eve of the interim budget. This is the customary photo op. Here's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and her team. Remember, she delivers her 6th consecutive budget tomorrow, creating history.